Based on a true story, a woman suspects her father's new wife of orchestrating his murder. Before the family fortune ends up in the wrong hands, she must gather irrefutable evidence proving her suspicions. Outside the Cavanaugh home, a reporter recounts the events from a year ago that rocked the peaceful community of Orange County, Virginia. Hank Cavanaugh, one of the town's most prominent residents, died suddenly at his hilltop home. Following the man's mysterious death, locals began suspecting his younger wife, whom people started calling the widow on the hill. Later, the reporter explains that Hank's widow, Linda, only agreed to speak to her in the presence of her attorney and with the stipulation that she not speak directly about the charge for which she's soon to stand trial. During the interview, the woman implies she isn't scared of speaking to the journalist because she wants people to know that she isn't a murderer. 5 years ago, her third marriage was already doomed to fail since she and her then husband could no longer stand each other. They stop at a gas station so the man can fill up his motorcycle, and the angry woman makes her way to the store. However, minutes later, she sees her husband driving away, leaving her stranded in an unfamiliar town. While wandering along the country road, Linda sees a house on top of a hill and asks herself how nice it must be to live in a home like that. Years later, the woman settled down in a trailer home and put herself through nursing school. Eventually, she hears that the residents of the hilltop house need a hospice nurse, so she immediately applies for the job. Soon, Linda drives to the Cavanaugh home and Hank explains that they need a hospice nurse for his dying wife. Then she meets one of the man's daughters, Jenny, and promises to take good care of her mother. In the bedroom, Hank's wife, Felicia, jokingly asks Linda if she's the angel of death. The nurse says that if she continues to feel pain, the doctor will increase the morphine dose. The woman tells the patient that she's lucky she has a great view from her bed, but the latter counters that most people wouldn't consider dying at 45 years old lucky. Then, Felicia tells the nurse that her death is gonna be hard on her husband, so the nurse lays a comforting hand on her arm. In the living room, Linda tells Hank that the patient's pain is under control but advises him to call her if it gets worse. She hands the man a pamphlet for what to expect in a month or so he asks if the woman thinks that's all the time his wife has left. The nurse clarifies that no one knows for sure, but she's certain Felicia needs his strength in these trying times. As she's about to leave, Linda sees a framed picture on the wall and asks if it's his other daughter. Hank says his daughter Monica's married now, while Jenny moved back in the house after taking a leave from college. The nurse tells the man that her job also entails helping him through the difficult journey, and she kisses him on the cheek. The next day, Hank's friends, Rick and Kevin, enter the general store where the latter greets Jenny, who's working behind the counter. The two men join their pal and Jenny's godfather, Ransom, at a table just as Hank walks in with Linda. After talking to his daughter at the counter, he introduces the nurse to his friends and explains that she is helping take care of his wife. Meanwhile, Jenny curiously watches her father and the woman's interactions, unsure how she feels about their growing familiarity. When Linda stands up to get their sandwiches, Kevin asks if all nurses are as beautiful as her, so Hank tells him that she's a compassionate woman who doesn't deserve to be stared at disrespectfully. Moments later, the three men give each other knowing looks when the nurse places a napkin on Hank's lap. Days later, Rick asks Jenny how her mother is, and she solemnly says she expects the worst any day now. Then, the woman jokes that she would have run away with him if he asked her to, and he implies that they belong to two different social classes in town. The man mentions that Hank told him that she quit drinking, and when she says she's doing her best, he encourages her to keep at it. When Jenny asks what he thinks about the nurse, Rick says that if it were up to him, he'd call up the hospice and have them send someone else, revealing that he too is wary of Linda. Later, the nurse gives the patient her scheduled morphine dose and she steps out of the room to give the mother and daughter some time alone. Felicia asks Jenny to grab her jewelry box, and she says she wants the child to have the star sapphire ring that belonged to her great-grandmother. The daughter sobs, so the mother tells her to be strong and take care of her father after she's gone. After descending the stairs, Jenny sees Linda gently caressing Hank's face. Irate, she barges into the kitchen to interrupt the moment and accuses the nurse of coming on to her father. Linda insists it isn't what it looks like and offers to inform the hospice if the family wants a different nurse, but Hank says it isn't necessary because it was all a misunderstanding. The next day, Jenny welcomes her sister Monica home, and the family spends the morning hanging out on the porch. One afternoon, while the father and daughter are out riding horses, the distraught Monica arrives in her car to inform them of Felicia's passing. During the funeral service, Ransom delivers a speech and tells Hank that the entire community is there to help him and his family through these trying times. At the house, the godfather asks Jenny how she is holding up, and she says she knows people think she's gonna revert to drinking because of her mother's death, but she swears swears she won't. When she sees the nurse talking to Hank, she tells Ransom that she doesn't like the woman. Then, Linda tells Jenny that her mother loved her very much, but the annoyed daughter says she already knew that and walks away. One day, the nurse stops by the house, and Hank shares that he stopped drinking the day before Monica's wedding because he promised he wasn't going to be drunk while walking his daughter down the aisle. He adds that one thing that keeps him going is singing in the church choir, and the woman says she'd love to hear him sometime. However, when he suggests she join him at the church on Sunday, Linda remarks that Jenny won't like her being there. So the man says his daughter doesn't go to church and asks the nurse not to leave. Then, they share a passionate kiss and Linda says she'll see him on Sunday. During the service, Hank smiles when he sees the woman sitting in the pews. One evening, the couple arrives at Ransom's house for a party, and when she compliments Felicia's coat that she has on, the man says she should keep it. The nurse doesn't think she's dressed appropriately for the occasion and shows him that she only wore skimpy undergarments under the coat. Suddenly, the door opens and Ransom introduces Linda to his wife Lois. During the party, the other guests quietly gossip and stare at the fledgling couple. After leaving the event early, the pair head to the nurse's trailer home where they make love on top of Felicia's fur coat. The next day, Hank comes home to Jenny carrying her belongings to her car. He asks what she's doing. So the angry daughter says she's moving to an apartment in town because she disapproves of his new relationship. She adds that she doesn't want to think of her father doing the deed with a new woman when he's supposed to be grieving his wife. Soon, the man tells his daughters that he's asked the nurse to marry him. And while Monica congratulates the father, Jenny walks out of the room. Days later, Monica tells her sister to move on and accept that their father needs to live his life as he chooses. Then, she adds that she isn't worried about Hank or Linda, and the person in their family she's most worried about is Jenny. Meanwhile, the nurse tells the man that she wants to go to Italy for their honeymoon. She says she wants to travel the world so that when she talks to his rich friends, she'll have something to contribute to the conversation. Moments later, Hank asks if she'd agree to a prenuptial agreement. So Linda asks if he asked Felicia to sign one. When the man says no, the woman thinks it's because his late wife came from a wealthy family while she didn't. Hank reveals that his daughter suggested the prenup, and the nurse suspects it was Jenny. He explains that they need to proceed cautiously, but she tells him that if he wants to love cautiously, he should find himself another woman. Just as she walks away, the man pulls her into his arms and kisses her. Linda asks Hank to trust that she'll take care of his children after he's gone the way he trusted Felicia. Finally, he agrees to forgo a prenup if it's what'll make the nurse happy. During the wedding, Rick encourages the pouting Jenny to congratulate the couple because it would mean the world to her father. So the woman approaches the bride, who promises to take care of Hank because she knows how much his children love him. To her shock, Jenny sees the star sapphire ring around Linda's finger and says her mother gave it to her. She raises her voice and demands that the nurse hand it over, prompting Monica and Rick to intervene and defuse the tense situation. Weeks later, at the annual show jumping party that Felicia used to host, Linda hopes that the event shows the local elites that she can hold her own. When Hank arrives still in his work clothes, the overwhelmed woman says he needs to take the picnic seriously because people are gonna compare how she fares as a host to Felicia. However, the stubborn husband doesn't want to obey her orders. So the nurse says if he changes his clothes, she'll promise to take them off him later tonight. After the man leaves, Linda sees Kevin staring at her, so she tells him to place the chairs by the tables. During Linda's birthday, Jenny sees the woman still wearing her late mother's ring. The celebrant thanks the family for welcoming her in their home and explains that she doesn't intend on replacing Felicia. Suddenly, Jenny interrupts by asking Monica about her new house, making the atmosphere even more awkward. One day, the daughter catches Linda and Kevin kissing in the barn, so the embarrassed man returns to work on the farm. Jenny threatens to tell her father, but the nurse says it doesn't matter what she does because Hank isn't gonna believe his alcoholic daughter who doesn't care about anybody but herself. She adds that the man stays up half the night worrying about the daughter, and she's surprised he hasn't had a heart attack by now. However, Jenny knows what she wants is her father's fortune and vast property, but the nurse clarifies that she already has it. That Sunday, the churchgoers see Linda and Kevin arriving, and their looks imply that everyone suspects they're having an affair. At the store, Ransom tells Rick that he's aware the entire town thinks the nurse is cheating on Hank. Even though it hurts them to see their friend being made a fool, they can't think of a good way to break the unfortunate news. One afternoon, Rick catches Linda and Kevin making love in the horse stables, and he orders orders the man to leave. To his surprise, the woman doesn't seem bothered when he says he'll tell Hank what he saw. She leaves her blouse undone, exposing her chest. So Rick scoffs and says he doesn't understand how she isn't satisfied being with a good man like Hank. The nurse says she's never satisfied because she enjoys wanting things she shouldn't have. Then Linda kisses Rick, who initially pushes her away and explains that he can't betray his friend. However, the woman says her husband doesn't have to know, so they end up making love. That night, the guilty man calls Jenny and begs her to tell her father that the whole town knows about the nurse's affair with Kevin. The next day, the daughter tries to convince Hank of his wife's infidelity, but he angrily brushes it off as vicious gossip. He thinks Jenny's jealous of all the attention he gives Linda, which is why she chooses to believe the hateful rumor. During the interview, the reporter asks the nurse about the affair, and the latter insists it was just town gossip spread by Hank's alcoholic daughter. A year ago, while the man sings in the church choir, he sees his wife and Kevin talking and giggling, and he wonders if Jenny was telling the truth. One night, Kevin drops the nurse off at the house, and she finds her husband in the workshop waiting for her to arrive. When he learns who drove her home, he subtly implies that he's aware of what everyone's been saying about his wife. In the house, the woman doesn't deny the affair and reasons that if she finds something she wants, she has to have it. She deduces that Jenny must have been one of the people who told him because the daughter thinks she's trash. To her surprise, the husband agrees with his daughter, and she counters that she wasn't trash when she was taking care of Felicia. Furious, Hank tells her not to talk about his late wife, so the nurse apologizes. However, the man says she humiliated him in front of his family and the entire county, and that he wants a divorce. He states that he wants the woman to leave town and that he's also taking her out of his will. At the store, Hank confronts Kevin, and even though he isn't firing him from the farm, he threatens to kill him if he touches his wife again. Seconds later, the older man collapses on the floor and Jenny immediately comes to his aid. Soon, the nurse checks her husband's vital signs and sees that his blood pressure's normal. The daughter still thinks he needs to go to the doctor, but the father says he's alright and just needs to catch his breath. He believes the dizziness was just an adverse reaction he had to the new medication he's taking for his chronic back pain. That afternoon, Kevin tells Rick that he knows something happened between him and Linda. The guilty man pins him against the wall and threatens to kill him if he says anything to their boss. Seconds later, Hank enters the barn and invites the men to have dinner at the house. In the house, the nurse asks her husband to forgive her because she loves him and never wants them to be apart. However, he says that if he stays with her, he'd be throwing away his pride. That evening, while Rick and Kevin are at the dining table, Linda says she's heading upstairs to give Hank his dinner, but they see her make a detour in the pantry first. Later, after the woman returns to the table, they hear a thud from upstairs and find the older man on the floor. So Rick tells the nurse to perform CPR while he calls an ambulance and Jenny. When the paramedics arrive, the wife says her husband's dead, but when they continue resuscitating him, she angrily insists that she already checked and he's gone. Irate, Rick tells the woman to stand back and let the men do their job. However, the paramedics confirm the nurse's claim, and Jenny runs into the room and sobs over her father's lifeless body. Later, Rick sees Linda breathing a sigh of relief after finding Hank's will, and wonders why she doesn't seem that distraught. At the wake, the sisters share a comforting hug, and the nurse suddenly appears and says she kept telling their father that he was gonna have a heart attack if he didn't stop working so hard. When Ransom asks the family what type of service they'd like, the widow claims her late husband told her on numerous occasions that he'd like to be cremated, so she went ahead and made the arrangements for tomorrow morning. Jenny argues that her father never mentioned it before, and Ransom says that the woman should have consulted the children first. However, the nurse reminds them that none of them were his wife and all she's doing is honoring Hank's wishes. Outside, Jenny thinks something doesn't seem right because her father would have wanted to be buried next to his late wife. She believes Linda killed Hank and she wants to cremate his body to destroy any evidence. She adds that the woman might have murdered their mother too and she'll get away with everything if they don't stop her. When Ransom and Monica think she's just paranoid and not thinking straight, she vows to uncover the truth herself. Later, the Commonwealth attorney says she needs to submit tangible proof that the case warrants an autopsy before he can stop the cremation. That afternoon, Rick tells Jenny that she isn't paranoid because he also believes the nurse did something to Hank. He says that on the night of her father's death, Linda made a detour in the pantry before heading upstairs to give the older man his dinner. He adds that he saw the woman reading Hank's will will minutes after he died. So she asks Rick to give an affidavit to the Commonwealth attorney because it might be enough to convince him. The next day, the cops arrive at the funeral home to halt the cremation. The widow tells the sisters that their father's body is going to get cut up into pieces during the autopsy, so Jenny slaps her and walks away. At the funeral service, the sisters check the pantry and find morphine packages tucked away on a shelf. When Linda sees that Monica now also believes she killed Hank, she orders the sisters to leave the house, which she claims is hers. Days later, Jenny stops by the house, and the widow tells her that she owns the property because she wanted it more than the daughter did. However, the woman says that isn't the case anymore because the autopsy report came back and revealed that her father died from a morphine overdose. The nurse says it doesn't prove anything, but Jenny adds that they also found the morphine packages in the pantry that Linda stole from the hospice. The widow insists that she never stole anything and that Hank's been taking the medication for his back for months. Suddenly, the cops arrive to arrest the nurse, and Jenny implies that she convinced Kevin to give a statement against the woman. In the present, Linda says she didn't agree to the interview to convince the reporter that she's innocent. When the host asks if she doesn't care what people think, the nurse says that when the trial is over, people will understand that Jenny's manipulative and vindictive. To conclude the interview, the woman says she's looking forward to the trial because she climbed to the top of the hill and she doesn't intend on letting anyone drag her down from it. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Jenny turns the TV off and smirks. Eventually, the widow was acquitted of first-degree murder and still lives in the Cavanaugh home. She now faces a multi-million-dollar civil lawsuit filed by her late husband's daughters.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.